We are back. Another episode of the KNL Sports Huddle. I'm your host, KH Kiplinger, joined as always by my co-host, Logan Hubert. A couple days later than usual. Seems like it's been forever since I seen you, man. How you doing?
Good, yeah. We wanted to definitely didn't want to do it Monday night because of the NBA Finals, and then Tuesday night I had an obligation that night, so yeah, we had to push it back to Wednesday. But luckily, not too much has happened in that little time zone,
Yeah,
time span between then, so we can focus uh, exclusively on what happened in the last week before.
definitely. Let's get to what missed the cut first. I know we had a lot of things, just like little tidbits happen over the past week, and then we had those couple extra days. But first off, Florida Panthers are back-to-back Stanley Cup champs as they knock off the Edmonton Oilers for their for the second straight year, actually, winning Game 6 5-1. Congratulations to them, and that will conclude our hockey coverage for the year. Over to baseball, we got the Red Sox trading their star player Rafael Devers to the San Francisco Giants for pitchers Jordan Hicks and Kyle Harrison. Um, they mishandled another star, and now they've let him go. A lot of people compare it to Mookie Betts whenever they let him go. I don't see him as on the level of Mookie Betts. I look at Mookie as a superstar. Devers is a star, yes, but not quite to that level. But, Red Sox could have had him for another decade. He had 10 years left on his contract. Luckily, the Giants are taking over the rest of those years. But other news in baseball, we got Shohei Ohtani throwing 100 miles per hour in his one inning start, his first start on the mound since 2023. They had him on a pretty short leash, gave up 2 hits, 1 earned run, but it was cool to see him finally back on the mound. In college baseball, though, baseball was really hit this past weekend in college baseball with Arkansas's Gage Wood throwing just the third no-hitter in men's college World Series history, striking out 19 as the Razorbacks advance in the College World Series. That was pretty cool to see. I saw the end of that, to see the atmosphere of that stadium erupt whenever that happened. It's very rare in men's college baseball to see that happen. In the NBA, had the Memphis Grizzlies trade away Desmond Bain to the Orlando Magic for KCP, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and 4 first-round draft picks. I actually like this trade for both teams. I think the Magic, I like their core of Banchero, Wagner, Suggs, those guys. I like that group. They're an up-and-coming team in the NBA, and adding Desmond Bain gives them some more outside shooting. And as for the Grizzlies, the 4 first-round draft picks says to me they're ready to take that first step into moving on from John Morant and knowing that he is not the kind of guy to build a championship team around. He's the Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, not a great shooter, very downhill type of small guard, very athletic, but not obviously immaturity as well on his part throughout this whole last season and before. So I see that as a good step forward for the Grizzlies as they try to move on from him. Um, but the New York Knicks, they've been denied interviews by not one, not two, not three, but 4 teams to speak to their head coaches. The Dallas Mavericks, when they tried to get Jason Kidd, Timberwolves with Chris Finch, the Rockets with Ime Udoka, and the Atlanta Hawks for Quinn Snyder. Look, I don't know what James Dolan is. He looks like he doesn't have a plan for the next head coach for the New York Knicks. Looks like he never had one. And I don't know why they're going after current head coaches who are under contract for other teams and not trying to just get somebody who's on the market. Right now, it looks like Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown are the front runners. Give me your thoughts on any of these topics.
Yeah, so it's hard to if we're putting hockey into basketball perspective. I mean, Connor McDavid's tarnished his legacy forever by losing 2 titles in a row. I mean, he'll never recover from this. He'll never be the goat. He'll never be. yeah, it just shows you how ridiculous basketball commentary is these days. Because
Yeah.
Connor McDavid's still a fantastic hockey player. But I agree with you on the Magic Grizzlies trade. A lot of people are clowning the Magic for giving up 4 first-round picks, and I do think that is pretty steep. But they badly, and I mean badly, needed shooting. Any sort of outside shooting. That's what they thought they were going to get from Contavious Caldwell-Pope. He ultimately did not provide that in his short tenure in Orlando. And, I mean, Desmond Bane can hopefully provide that for them. And when it comes to the Magic, I mean, they've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. They have a bunch of top picks already on their team. They've already went through the tanking years. They've used their top picks. They don't need draft picks anymore if they're serious about contending in the East, especially when the East should be wide open next year with the Celtics injuries. So, yeah, I mean, 4 is a lot. Like, if you're ever going to look to do another trade, if the Magic are ever going to look to do another trade, I mean, you'd maybe like to have at least one of those picks still around. But, I mean, good for the Magic to get Desmond Bane. They will be a sleeper team, I would say, next year in the East. And then, yeah, I mean, all 4 of those guys you mentioned for the Knicks coaching search, excuse me. I mean, none of those teams would be willing to give up their guy at the moment they're in. Why would the Mavericks give up Jason Kidd whenever they're about to get the number 1 overall pick and Cooper Flag? I mean, that just wouldn't make any sense. Rockets would not get rid of Ime Udoka. I mean, he's a coach of a young, up-and-coming team. Like, you're going to throw away the chemistry that he's set. Chris Finch with the Timberwolves, I mean, he's gone to the conference finals back-to-back years. I don't know why you give up on him. And the Hawks haven't had much success, but Quinn Snyder is an established coach, and he's only been there for a short time. So I think it's good for a team like that to have a veteran coach in there to hope maybe generate some sort of energy around the team. Maybe like free agents would want to be drawn there. They'd be more likely to be drawn to a veteran coach, I feel like, than a young coach who hasn't established himself yet. So, but yeah, I'm the Knicks coaching search, I think, is getting too much talks right now with the NBA Finals going on. But I do think once the finals are over, I do think it might be the most fascinating story, one of the most fascinating stories of the NBA offseason, especially with how they've already approached it in these last few days.
Yeah, so let's get to the NBA Finals talk. So we had 3 games, game 3, 4, and 5 happened since the last time we spoke. The Pacers ended up taking game 3 at home off a bounce back performance from Tyrese Halliburton and some very good key production from Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, and Obi Toppin. The Thunder end up taking game 4 to even the series back up. That to me might be the most important game that happened in this series and one that really shifted the tide the Thunder's way as the Thunder ultimately take game 5 at home. Despite a third quarter boost from TJ McConnell, the Pacers really just couldn't outlast the Thunder's defense and the J. Will 40-point game. Give me your thoughts on kind of what has transpired so far in these past 3 games and what it's looking like for game 6 tomorrow.
Well, there's a lot to cover, so I'd say let's just start one game at a time. So, game 3, yeah. I mean, TJ McConnell in that second quarter of game 3, I think, saved the series from being over in 5 because, I mean, I know we talk about how first halves mean nothing in the NBA usually unless you establish a lead bigger than 25.
Right.
But, I mean, the Pacers weren't doing anything offensively or defensively with their starters. And then in came McConnell, and he just provided an instant spark off the bench with his hustle plays. And then Mathurin, he was huge too, mostly because the starters kind of all seemed passive. Like no one had confidence in themselves. They weren't really shooting. Mathurin's a guy, he will shoot no matter what, no matter if he's 1 for 10 or if he's 9 for 10. He will shoot, and that's what he did. And that was the night where he was making them, and he ended up with 27. But his spark and confidence, I think, reignited the team, and that's ultimately what delivered them game 3, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I guess one other thing, yeah. Oh, and one of the main reasons the Thunder lost that was their bench was an uncharacteristically bad game. They only scored 18 bench points compared to the Pacers' 49.
Yeah, and what I noticed in Game 3 was that the Pacers were actually able to get to the paint, which I really hadn't seen in the first couple games. And it really just freed up the movement within their offense. Like I said, great bench production from McConnell and Mathurin. What's funny is Bill Simmons of The Ringer actually predicted Benedict Mathurin getting 27 points in 22 minutes after Game 1, and he was spot on. It happened exactly that way in Game 3. Um, Obviously, Halliburton had a bounce back performance, but I think I texted you at some point towards the end of Game 3 that there was just OKC's defenders were just standing around on box outs. There was a lack of box outs in late game situations that allowed for big second chance points for the Pacers. And it just looked like SGA and most of the guys on the Thunder were exhausted by the end of it. It looked like the Pacers were really able to control the pace by getting up and down the floor. And by the end of that game, it looked like the Thunder players were just gassed by the end of that
which
one.
is what the which is what the Pacers had done to every Eastern Conference team they played. I didn't think they'd be able to do it against the Thunder. I just
Right.
thought if the Pacers, I mean, I predicted the Pacers would win the series. And I thought it'd just be by their shooting, and the Thunder would just go colder from shooting than usual. I wouldn't have expected that, especially because the Thunder actually, I'm pretty sure the Thunder made more threes. Thunder made more threes in that game than the Pacers did. The Pacers did not shoot really that well in Game 3. It was just, they just wore the Thunder down. The Thunder started getting really sloppy on offense, and they started turning it over more than the Pacers, which is really unusual, especially in the next two games we'll talk about after this one. But it was obviously it helped that it was like the first finals game in Indianapolis in 25 years, so the building was alive, and I think the Pacers fed off that, especially once McConnell got going in the second quarter. So it was just a fun game all around. I thought.
Yeah, and then Game 4 happened, and the Pacers really they'd let a very important game slip away in the final quarter. Could have gone up 3-1 and in the driver's seat for the rest of the series. But SGA, he showed why he is the MVP of this league. He got it done on the road. What were your thoughts on Game 4?
Yeah, I mean, definitely let the golden opportunity slide. We've talked about this before, and it happened again. So this was what game 3? Yeah, game 3 against the Knicks in the second half, and game 2 in the second quarter against the Thunder. For some reason, the Pacers just changed their identity and want to play ISO ball on offense, and the success rate of that so far this postseason has been a solid 0%. And once again, the trend continued in the fourth quarter, where for some reason Halliburton and Nimhard and they were all kind of, and Turner, they were all kind of going side to side instead of straight to the basket, kind of doing ISO. Siakam, who was their leading scorer, like hardly ever touched the ball in the fourth quarter, which shocked me. I don't know what that was about. That also happened in Game 5, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But and then the Thunder just fed off that. SGA hit some big shots, and I know people were probably thinking, the Pacers are a clutch team, like they could still pull this out, and I had never thought that because just once, like I said, they started playing against their identity, going ISO, and no, that's not their offense. Their offense is free flowing, lots of passes, try to get into the paint, kick out to three, but no, yeah, really unfortunate for the Pacers, but credit to the Thunder because I really thought the way Game 3 ended, where the Pacers just wore the Thunder out, I thought, this could actually be a trend going forward.
Right.
And in the third quarter, you kind of thought that because I thought Obi Toppin had a fantastic game. Like he almost blew the roof off the place. Like when they took a 12-point lead, he played a really good third quarter. But the Thunder just hung around and they made some big plays at the end. I don't know if I want to say steal it because they were the favorite, but but they stole it because they were down. So
Yeah, and they proved both of us wrong really about how they've been on the road. Really gutsy performance on the road for a young team, and it just kind of shows why they're they're the best team all year long. And that continued into Game 5 as they headed home in front of the OKC fans. And Jalen Williams, man, breakout game. He kind of been he'd been good throughout the playoffs, but he'd been pretty quiet for what we'd expect for him. 40 points. SGA had his usual. He put up 31. But the Thunder Stars really showed up while the Pacers Stars didn't. Halliburton ended with 4 points, didn't make a field goal all game. For me, feels like this series may be over. And like I said, I thought Game 4 was that turning point. The fact that the Thunder were able to get one on the road and get home court advantage back in their favor really hurt the Pacers in that game. But in Game 5, the Thunder, they just proved why they're one of the best teams in the league and historically one of the best overall because they have the most double-digit wins in an NBA season, including playoff games. That's more than 2017 Warriors, the 71 Bucks, and the 96 Bulls. So yeah, give me your thoughts on Game 5, just what you saw in that one, and what you expect in Game 6 and 7, if we get a seventh.
I have not heard anyone bring this up. I'm just now kind of thinking about it. This series is almost going identically to the Nuggets Thunder series just a few weeks ago. Nuggets won a game they had no business winning in Game 1 on the road after a game winner. Thunder blew them out Game 2. Nuggets got one at home in Game 3. Thunder won a close one on the road in Game 4. Thunder took care of business at home in Game 5. Now we're to the point where we go back to the underdogs arena. So if the Pacers, these first 5 games have gone exactly how that Thunder Nuggets series has gone. So if we're basing off that, depending on the Halliburton injury, who knows what'll happen there. But I would imagine this will go 7 games. But yeah, Jalen Williams was incredible. He was hitting everything. That's what it felt like. They ended up with 40. But he wasn't the only guy. They had 4 different guys who made 3+ threes in that game. None of them were SGA. SGA finished with a lot of points, but he didn't hit a single 3. But they had 4 guys in total hit 3 threes, and all 4 of those guys shot over 50% from 3. So yeah, it was their bench played bad in Game 3. I think their bench does play a lot better at home than they do on the road, and that showed in Game 5. But yeah, I don't know what to think of Halliburton's performance. I don't know when he re-aggravated his calf, because people say, oh, he looks to be moving fine in the second half. I don't really think he was hurt. And you could say that, but if he never really looked to take a shot, like he never looked to take a jump shot, and that's kind of telling because even on games where he's passive, you will see a couple times where he'll try to get started, but he really in the second half, like he'd go to the basket a couple times and get fouled, but he never looked for his jump shot. He was kind of scared to shoot, and I just don't know what to think if it was the calf or if it was just typical Halliburton dud that he provides every third or fourth game that he plays.
Was quite the dud for Halliburton.
It was an absolute dud. But one thing that doesn't, Nembhard was horrible. He had one of the worst quarters I think I've ever seen in the NBA Finals in that fourth quarter. Well, yeah, late into the third, into the fourth. Because, once again, if the Pacers somehow win this NBA Finals, TJ McConnell might need the Finals MVP because he brought them back. Him and then Siakam kind of took over later in the third quarter, cut it to 2.
They were down 18.
Actually in the fourth quarter. But then there was that one key play in the third where Pacers, I think, Siakam hit a 3, and then Obi Toppin stole the inbounds pass, and they missed a 3, but they got the rebound, and then they got it to Nembhard. Then Nembhard just threw a horrible pass out of bounds.
I remember that play vividly.
And that just kind of killed momentum, and then I think Jalen Williams hit a shot to end the quarter, and that kind of sparked the Thunder. then Nimhard, I think, threw 3 or 4 bad passes in the fourth quarter that led to wide open layups or dunks for the Thunder. Just bad, costly turnovers. But once again, like in Game 4, Siakam for some reason wasn't really getting the ball whenever he was kind of their leading scorer in the fourth quarter. This Game 5 was more about Pacers turning it over, I feel like, than Game 4, where I think their offense was just the Thunder's defense was just too much in Game 5. But still, Siakam was hot at the time. I feel like McConnell, he hasn't played well in fourth quarters. Like, his spark is usually middle of the third to the beginning of the fourth, and he goes out, and Halliburton, Nimhard finish it. But with how those two guys were playing, I think Rick Carlisle made a mistake by not putting McConnell in earlier into the fourth quarter just to try it. I would say Halliburton and McConnell would have been the way to go. I don't think Nimhard was just playing well enough to do it all on his own in Game 5.
Yeah. One guy that has impressed me over this final series has been Chet Holmgren. He's definitely making his presence known out there. While he's been on the floor, OKC's defense is a plus 12.7 points. That's their defensive rating. Their net rating is plus 12.6 points. So he's definitely been a difference maker for them. Obviously, at thin frame, thought maybe Pacers bigs would be able to take advantage of that. But he's been able to have a huge impact on this series for them. And considering that the Thunder have won Game 5, winners of Game 5, when the finals are tied 2-2, wins the series 74% of the time. When you're going up against one of the most dominant teams historically in NBA history, like the Thunder are, those odds may be worse for the Pacers, especially with a hobbled Halliburton. They've said that it's a game-time decision for Halliburton for Game 6. Ultimately, I think he will play. It'll just be how effective can he be, how serious is that injury, and how much will it affect him. And obviously, we're going to have a lot of minutes from TJ McConnell in Game 6.
Yeah, and Holmgren had a horrible Game 1, so he completely changed how I thought the series was going to go, because I thought, oh boy, he looked bad, not just on offense but defense too. He had some bad plays on defense too. But yeah, he's really stepped up his game. Another guy we haven't shouted out, especially Game 4, Caruso. I thought Caruso may have been the most important guy in Game 4 on their comeback. Yeah. He finished with their highest plus minus. He finished plus 14 in that Game 4. And like Williams and SGA both finished at 0. So, Caruso comes up with big steals. He finished with 20 points. So a guy coming off the bench to give you 20, that's always big in the finals. So yeah, shout out to him. One thing, I hate talking about this, but it does need to be brought up. Game 4. So going into Game 4, when they announced the referee assignments, they announced Scott Foster. And this is before the game. I'm not even talking about during the game. This is before the game. Everyone was already saying what was going to happen. Like, Thunder fans were cheering that Scott Foster was the official. And like the rest of the NBA were like, yep, this is going to be tied. The extenders come in. And I don't blame officiating for losses usually, but when you watch that whole game, I almost put it 50-50 of reasons the Pacers lost. 50% the way it was officiated, and the other 50% their horrible last half of the fourth quarter that they inexcusably played. But yeah, it all started that horrible Chet, one of the very first plays, where Chet Holmgren fell, and I thought, great, I'm thankful he's okay, because that looked really awkward.
Yeah.
But he fell, and they called a Siakam foul, and then the replay, Siakam never touched him. Holmgren never even took a shot, and they gave Holmgren 2 free throws. There was no shot attempt. Gave him 2 free throws. That was like the first of 3 times in that game where I feel like they called shooting fouls where no one shot it. I think that's just a rule that needs to be looked at. it's not even a continuation rule. It's like they're not even shooting it.
Right.
The continuation rule can be debated, but that's what that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you're not even going to put up a shot, you can go to the lane, but if you're not going to put up a shot, that's not a shooting foul. It bothered me. That horrible flagrant foul they called on Obi Toppin. That was, they said there was they said follow through, and what's the first thing that they look for? What's it called? There's three
Just
things they look at.
excessive or
Wind up. It's wind up,
wind
contact.
up. Yeah.
Okay, and there was no wind up. All we did, I mean, it was a foul. I'm not debating. It was clearly a foul, but no wind up. Just going for the ball, going for a layup, and called that a foul. The SGA step back where he clear push off, which they don't. At least they're not calling that consistently. They're not calling that at all, really. So I can let that slide a little bit because they're being consistent. I do think that rule needs to be looked at because I do think the offense, and I'm not just talking about SGA. I've said before. I've said before. I don't blame SGA for doing that. He's just I compared it to Harden's step back where people called it a travel. He's just exploiting the rules. Until they change the rules, I don't mind him doing that. But yeah, he did that. And then he took 3 steps, and Scott Foster was looking directly at it, and they didn't call it. And I'm like, yeah. And then right before that, Lou Dort shoved Halliburton clearly on and that was in the fourth quarter. That was crucial, and that led it to a Caruso dunk. So yeah, I mean, I know I'm just nitpicking calls and stuff, but it was like that the entire game, and everyone knew going in. It's just weird that the NBA allows Scott Foster to ref when it's just league-wide known that it's going to be everyone knows how the game's going to be called. I mean, like, Pacers fans are probably wanting Scott Foster to ref Game 6 since he's nicknamed the Extender. So
I mean, you never know.
Yeah. And it's getting to the point now too where it's just hard. I said Game 1, it was fascinating to watch the Thunder play defense because of how often they go for strips that you think are usually going to be fouls. And but then you watch the replay, you're like, oh, they're not a foul. Like, it's just amazing how they do that. I still like watching them do that on defense, but now it's to the point where I do think the reputation of being a good defense is letting them get away with way too much.
Yep.
I mean, it's especially Lou Dort. I texted you. I'm getting just real tired of watching Lou Dort play basketball. I mean, yeah, he's just playing tackle football out there, and it's hard to watch. But yeah, I don't like complaining about officiating, but I just wanted to say that because I feel like it's been a big story. Starting game four,
right.
It's been a big story. Yes.
Yeah, and for Game 6, I mean, Pacers' backs are against the wall here, but I wouldn't say, you can't just dismiss them. Their chances in Game 6, you're right, and in front of that home crowd, they've been terrific for Games 3 and 4. The overall series, I still believe the Thunder will get this series in 7. So my hope is that Pacers win this game, so this goes to 7. But the atmosphere in Indianapolis for basketball is incredible. As it's always stated in Indiana, in 49 states, it's just basketball. But this is Indiana. Obviously grew up there, know how rabid that state is for this sport, from grade school all the way up to the pros. And we've seen them support. The fans come out to support both the Pacers and the Fever throughout this season. It's been pretty cool to see. So we'll see what happens in Game 6. I would hope that Halliburton plays and is able to put forth a performance that's worth noting, and that good minutes from TJ McConnell can help extend this series to 7 games. But we'll have to see. I mean, last thought here. If Halliburton can't play, what's the scheme for the Pacers to get this done?
Pray. I mean, when people are the criticism of Halliburton still doesn't make sense to me. I mean, he deserved it for his performance in Game 5, but
right,
he can't. Like, it's clear he's a really good player because when he plays bad, they don't win. So I mean, they can't get away with him playing bad. So,
Yeah.
but maybe it's different if he's just not in there at all. I mean, we've never really seen. Well, I mean, they honestly played Boston pretty well in those games 3 and 4 last year when Halliburton was out. Both of those games came down to the wire. Um, and just one other thing you can consider: I know the Thunder are really winning franchise this year, 68 points. I mean, 68 points, 68 wins in the regular season, but there is that factor. Would they rather get this done at home? Like, how motivated will they be for a game 6 at Indiana, knowing that very, very likely they would be able to get it done at game 7? You kind of saw that with the Pacers last series against the Knicks, where they just kind of
Yeah.
came out flat in Madison Square Garden in game 5 and then played great in game 6. So that's just
Yeah.
one little thing to watch, possibly.
Yeah, if I were the Thunder, though, I would want to get this done and bring the trophy
Oh, yeah.
home. I wouldn't, as a young team, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't think that way, but you see it all the time in the NBA playoffs. But
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what Game 6 holds for us tomorrow night, Thursday night in Indianapolis. Before we continue, though, if you're listening on YouTube, make sure you do hit that like and subscribe to the channel at KL Sports Huddle. If you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and follow us, give us a rating and a review. We're also on Instagram at HuddleKL Sports. You can see some of our content on there in short snippets, as well as any breaking news in the sports world that we post on our story. PGA Tour. Let's talk about the U.S. Open. Really cool weekend that we got to see of golf at Oakmont. I think the best quote to come out of this weekend was when Jordan Spieth, when asked about how how he deals with playing 4 rounds at Oakmont, he says, sometimes post U.S. Open, I just need to throw a few back. The 3 things that stood out the most to me, or that I really took away from this weekend: 1, Oakmont is really hard. 2, JJ Spaun is such a grinder and quite possibly the most deserving player on the tour for a win like this. And then 3, Rory needs to figure his shit out. He's not old enough to be letting his play dip this much, this badly. So let me just start with round 1. On Thursday, JJ Spaun scores a clean card, which was really awesome to see, especially when everyone else was going above par. Scoring a 66 for a tie of the first round record at Oakmont for a U.S. Open. Obviously, we saw Rory and Bryson really falter after a strong start to their round, finishing their first rounds with a 74 and 73 respectively. Then we had a really cool shot of Patrick Reed scoring just the 4th albatross or double eagle in U.S. Open history on that par 5 4th with a fairway wood. He didn't even know it because it was a blind look for him. He had to be told that he actually got the ball in the hole. That was round 1. Round 2, it was the Sam Burns day. So Sam Burns with an incredible 65 to catapult him up the leaderboard. Clutch par putt on the 18th kept his score intact. 3rd lowest round all time at Oakmont. Now, notable players who missed the cut after round 2: the defending champ, Bryson DeChambeau, Ludwig Oberg, Phil Mickelson, Justin Rose, Joaquin Niemann, Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, and Shane Lowry. So a lot of pretty big names to not make it into Oakmont on the weekend. Round 3, the top scorers were just slowly making their way back to even par throughout that day, and it just got worse into round 4. So at one point in the morning hours, 5 players, or actually later in the day, 5 players tied at the top at +1, each dropping shots though on the closing stretch. So I was really hoping we'd have a 5-man playoff that would have happened if the scores held. But one key thing that happened for Sam Burns was on the 15th hole. He was denied free relief from casual water. It was pretty much his downfall, where in that hole he double bogeyed. He even got a second opinion, and that wasn't enough for him to be able to give him some relief on that play. Every swing, every practice swing he took, he was kicking up water. But I just don't know quite what the ruling is on that, and if that was wrong or not. But it was definitely a turnaround hole for him in a bad way. We actually saw Robert McIntyre make a huge jump up the leaderboard almost by default, just keeping his score decent, and all the other players making their way back, and almost had an opportunity to be in a playoff. But that's when JJ Spaun battled back after having a +5 on his first 6 holes to win on a 64-foot birdie putt. One of the coolest things that I've seen on the tour this year, outside of Rory winning the Masters. He becomes the first U.S. Open champ to shoot a 40 on the front 9 on Sunday. It was a tough course already. Weather impacted heavily on the weekend days, and it was reported that the morning before his final round, his 3-year-old daughter was up vomiting the night before, and he stayed up with her the night before his final round. I mean, typical Father's Day, right? Shoots a 32 on the back 9 and rolls in 136 feet worth of putts in the final 7 holes. And obviously got a huge read from Victor Hovland's putt that came right before him. Might have given him just the perfect read to be able to sink that one in. Give me your thoughts on the weekend of the U.S. Open.
Yep. I mean, it provided tons of entertainment. The course did. That's exactly what we wanted, and that's what we got. I was with you whenever all those guys were tied at +1. I was really, really hoping it would stay like that, or they'd all remain tied, maybe like +2 or something, and we'd all be going into a 5-way playoff. That would have been fun and hilarious. But that rain delay killed a lot of players except JJ Spaun. If anything, it's unkilled or realived JJ Spaun, making up words here. But I mean, that's because he was. I mean, it's not just he shot, not just he bogeyed 5 of his first 6 holes. Some of those are just demoralizing. Like that second hole where he hit the flag stick and it rolled.
Oh my God.
He hit the flag stick and then he was chipping from 49 yards, I think is what it ended up. It was probably one of the unluckiest shots of the weekend from anybody. But yeah, I mean, that was about an hour and a half or so rain delay.
Yeah.
And it changed the course. I mean, none of the guys at the top were playing great by any means, but they were holding their lead well enough. Talking Adam Scott and Sam Burns, but yeah, that 90 minutes, and then they came back. The course was really, you could tell it was really impacted. Yeah, that Sam Burns ruling, I'd almost want to watch because I mean NBC was like they're not going to show every single hit.
Right.
They're only going to show like the guys who are in contention who are hitting. I almost want to see every single hit in that time zone and to see if there's anything similar to what Sam Burns hit, because I mean it really looked like he should have got relief from that. But if there were other guys who were playing through conditions like that, then he just tough luck. But I mean, yeah, with the amount of water that seemed to be there, I thought he would have for sure gotten relief. But he was faltering already a little bit, but that ultimately killed any chance he had. But yeah, some of the top guys, they were never in the position to win. But you look at the final leaderboard, they were all except DeChambeau, who that was the biggest surprise in my opinion. They're all kind of I mean, you got Scheffler and Rahm were both in the top 10. Schauffele was top 12. I mean, McIlroy, yeah, he had a bad weekend, but he gets a lot of press, but he really had a underrated Sunday. I mean, he just shot a 67 and he backed his way into a top 20 finish. Yeah, he finished tied for 19th when he barely made the cut. Yeah, I mean, he's clearly still not what he was a couple months ago, but maybe that'll give him some momentum going into the Travelers Championship this weekend. But yeah, I'm different from a lot of people. I was really hoping for chaos. really hoping for like a Hatton Carlos Ortiz playoff. That would have also been funny, because everyone would have been complaining, but I would have loved that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, credit to, like you said, credit to Robert McIntyre. He was always kind of hanging around all weekend, but never really came close to the leaders. But he didn't falter like almost everyone else did, and he just kind of climbed his way by default to the top for a little bit. And I thought he was going to win until uh, obviously Spaun took off. But like you said, Spawn's a gritty player, and that's the number one trait you need if you're going to win a U.S. Open at Oakmont. Just grit, because that's what it's going
Yeah.
to come down to, especially if on rainy, wet conditions. That's what you need. And yeah, I mean, just a fantastic back nine. I forget what other hole he hit that long putt on. He had another long putt on a hole on the back nine on Sunday that was
Yeah, I can
pretty
only remember
impressive as well.
the 18th, but
He had to go. He had to go over. He had to go over a hill and then it rolled in. Um,
yeah.
I really wish that was for the actual, because he could have two putted that 18th and he still would have
Yeah.
won. That would have made it that much. That would have made it cool. I mean, it's still a fantastic. I mean, it's still a historic putt. I guess I was greedy for better for anything better, but
Yeah.
yeah, I wish that was for the actual win. And if he would have missed, it would have been for a play. It would have gone to a playoff. But
Right.
still, yeah, he got Spawn deserved that after that unfortunate second hole where he hit the flagstick. He deserved that break of Victor Hovland landing his approach shot right next to his, right behind his, so he could get the perfect read on that 18th putt.
But yeah, and Spawn's story is incredible. You know, he was even quoted saying, halfway through last season, it was looking like I was going to be done. Uh, this weekend really ended up changing his life. You know, huge weekend for him. You know, you look back in his career, he didn't have any formal lessons growing up. He was a walk on at San Diego State. He got his tour card in 2017. He was actually misdiagnosed for diabetes and lost 40 pounds and dropped to 584th in the rankings. Lost his tour card, went back and got it on the Corn Ferry. And in career start 147 on the tour, won the 2022 Valero Texas Open. Obviously, we saw earlier this year when he lost in a playoff against Rory at the Players, but he's mentioned that a lot as a huge confidence boost for him and being able to compete with these top guys and be able to do this. And he comes home from the U.S. Open with $4.3 million in the bank, a U.S. Open trophy, and Jack Nicklaus medal. He actually gets to keep that trophy for a whole year. Then he gets a replica after. But he climbed up the leaderboard on almost all the different rankings, 6,450 Ryder Cup points, 750 FedEx Cup points, 100 official world golf ranking points, making him 8th in the world. He gets U.S. Open invitations for the next 10 years and an invitation to the other three majors for the next 5 years. He's also exempt. He has exempt status on the PGA Tour for 5 years and an invitation to the next 5 players. So he's pretty well set for at least 5 years on most of these different tournaments that he gets to play in, and catapulted to third on the Ryder Cup, the U.S. Ryder Cup team. So in the rankings, so probably should expect to see him on the Ryder Cup team come September. So that'll be really cool to see him there. Um, Looking at Rory, I know you mentioned he had a good Sunday, but I think what stood out more than maybe his finishing score was the way he acted on that Sunday. Um, to me, Rory really needs to find something in himself in order to get back to a true competitive mindset. He's had issues with the media. Obviously, that's a factor of reaching the mountaintop, of winning the Masters. You're going to be even more in the spotlight than you've ever been. And he's admitted in post-round press conferences that he's been lacking the motivation to even practice and to want to win any of these, tournaments that he's already won before. I mean, what else can he do in his career? He's quoted as saying, "I climbed my Everest in April, and I think after you win something like that, you've got to make your way back down, and you've got to look for another mountain to climb. And everyone probably saw his meltdown on the 17th at Oakmont. It was not a good look. He smashed the tee box. He tossing his club every which way. He's allowed some slack for his drop in quality weekends because, I mean, Tiger took off a month after winning the Masters. But in order for me to take you seriously going forward, you just can't act out in this way. You know, there's up and coming golfers watching you. They're going to take what you do and apply it to their game and think that it's just okay to do that. But he needs a strong weekend in his home country for the Open Championship, and maybe that will motivate him. He said, if I can't get motivated to get up for an Open Championship at home, then I don't know what can motivate me. And I agree with him because Royal Portrush is in Rory's home country of Ireland, and it's the perfect way to get back on track. So your thoughts on Rory?
He did have a really cool club toss, though. Did you see that one where it ricocheted off the bag and it caught it? That
back to him, yeah.
That gave him some positive points, in my opinion. But it didn't help. He was paired with Shane Lowry, who is also known for throwing temper tantrums on that Friday where he smashed the tee box. So yeah, I think that also contributed to how he was acting on Friday. He's we kind of called it. Both of us kind of called it where we were like, yeah, I mean, all these people saying, oh, he's got all the pressure off him. Here he comes. He's going to win all 4 majors this year. I'm like, yeah, but we're both like, or that could just mean he loses interest. And sure enough, that's what appears to have happened. But I mean, the big one, I would say the big one for him is the Open. Like after the Masters, if you had to rank what would be the most important for him to win, obviously be the Open because of where it's at this year. So, one other thing. So, what do you think of Scotty Scheffler's performance?
You know, he kind of just hung around in that +4, +5 range, and just never could really get things going for himself. It felt a lot like the Masters weekend when he was just kind of sitting a few shots back throughout the weekend. It's a tough course. I mean, Bryson didn't even make the cut. So I look at Oakmont and I'm like, I mean, JJ Spaun won. Sam Burns was at the top of the leaderboard. These offshoot guys were at the top of the leaderboard that you would never expect to be up there. And I think I think one of us mentioned it last week that this course, this tournament, it's might not see all the stars at the top. It might be some random that ends up winning this, and it ended up being that way. And so Scheffler's performance wasn't great by any means, definitely to his standards or standards of top guys. But he's had such a good run this past month or so that I think he's still got a lot of momentum.
Well, yeah, and 3 top 10s in majors, including 1 victory. I mean,
but the U.S. Open is his worst major, just historically. It has been the hardest one on him.
Yes, but so it's at Shinnecock Hills next year, and then I think Pebble Beach after that. I mean, Pebble Beach is definitely one of the easier U.S. Open courses. So, I mean, assuming Scheffler's still at the top of his game 2 years from now, I'd say look for him in that one potentially. But his putting was not great. And on that course, I felt like putting was the least important thing. Because on Oakmont, it's just getting it in the fairway, getting on the green, and you survive. Like being bad at putting wouldn't be is like the least of the concerns at Oakmont. But I think it I think it kind of cost him a chance to win because he missed some real gimmies. I felt like all 4 days, and but come whenever everyone was falling at Sunday after the rain delay, he thought, wow, he still has a chance. Like he still has a chance, and so I mean, it shows you how great he is. That we thought by his standards he played bad, but he finished tied for 7th.
Right.
Had no meltdown or anything like that. Just yeah, just a tough course. But yeah, sad that we only have one more major left this year. I've saw people talk about how they wish they moved the PGA championship back to August to where it originally was, so the golf season lasts longer. I don't, especially with the Ryder. I mean, the Ryder Cup's fun to watch.
Well,
I mean, that's in September, so
in
I don't.
that kind of schedule would push off the playoff more into September, and you're getting into football season, which it cannot compete with. And
No.
so I think in May is the perfect spot for it. The last guy I did want to note here is Phil Mickelson, who is seemingly done with major tournaments. It's what he hinted at beforehand, and it's sad that we may not see him in one of these again. I think he's great for the game, but I guess my question with him is, where does he rank among the greatest golfers in history? Since he's coming near the twilight years of his career, to me he's at least top 10. Obviously, his career is overshadowed by the fact that he played in the same era as the greatest to ever do it, in Tiger Woods. Because where Tiger was robotic, intensely focused, more aloof with fans, Phil was actually fun and animated and more engaging with the fans. And so for me, you know, he may have been overshadowed by Tiger throughout that whole era, but he is one of the golf's most important icons, I feel like, and the sport will definitely miss him. Top five, maybe? Tiger, Jack, Arnie, Hogan, Phil?
So he ranks 12th. On he's tied for 12th with Nick Faldo for most majors won with 6. Um, Obviously never got that U.S. Open, but a 3-time Masters champion. Won the PGA twice and the British Open once. I think top 10. I don't know, top 5. That's there's some
Wishful
good.
thinking.
You look at that majors list, you're like, oh, there's some historically really good guys here. But yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate. I watched his last putt. He had the chance. He had a real good chance to make the cut. He just barely missed it. He came down to his last putt on the 18th on Friday, and he missed it. And he finished +8, and +7 was the cut. So, yeah, I really thought he was going to make the cut. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's just the old guys is why we like this. But obviously, the 2019 Masters where Tiger won, that's one of the best golf tournaments you'll ever see. But that 2021 or 50 at Kiowa Island, the PGA Championship, where Phil won at 51 years old, that was epic in so many ways. Especially since that was like one of the first big sporting events after the lockdowns where they
Right.
let fans like interact. And I mean, I remember it was borderline dangerous. I remember Brooks Koepka was really pissed because he was in that final pairing with Phil, and like there was this huge crowd of people just following, following them. And yeah, that was a fun golf tournament, and we'll definitely miss Phil. But he's still on. It's not like he'll still be around Live because he's a big name, and that's what Live basically is getting paying big names lots of money.
Yeah.
So we'll still see his golf highlights, but when it comes to majors, yeah, might just be seeing him at the Masters if that might be it. But
Yeah. The lifetime exemption there at the Masters. We got some time here. Let's do.
does the PGA do that too?
I think they have one of those like 5-year,
Well, I don't
10-year.
know.
Yeah,
I don't know because like John Daly was there last year, and obviously he hasn't been.
that's been a while. Yeah,
Yeah,
you might be right about that. You might be right about that.
yeah. So yeah, I think the PGA Championship might be one too. But he expressed that it might be his last. So
Maybe he
not just
doesn't even take advantage of the exemption. So
yeah. So
that'd be unfortunate not to see Phil on the golf courses anymore. But we have some time here. We wanted to get this in our MLB All-Star voting, and one guy I did want to note before we got into it, who's having an absolute historic season, is Aaron Judge. He is putting up historic numbers. He leads the league in batting average, on base, slugging, OPS, hits, and WAR. Anyone who's not a huge stat nerd about baseball, WAR is a really good stat to show just your production, your value to the team, and getting wins above replacement. So he's among the league leaders in home runs, tied for the league lead in RBIs. These are the type of seasons we would see from like a Ted Williams back in the 40s and 50s with this kind of average and this kind of power. And a lot of the ones we think about are left-handers. When we think Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, all the greats from the past who would have seasons like this. The best right-handed hitter I've ever seen is Albert Pujols with the St. Louis Cardinals in his decade of exceptional hitting in the 2000s, where he was always hitting above 300, 40 plus RBI or 40 plus home runs, 100 plus RBIs. And as Paul O'Neill said, the Yankees broadcaster, he stated that fans are watching one of the best players ever in action, and I don't disagree. His at-bats are must-see TV. Quick thoughts on Judge's season. I know we had Shohei last year with the 50-50 season. This is right up there with one of the greatest seasons so far, up to this point at least.
Yeah, I think I called it earlier in the year whenever we did baseball predictions. Obviously, I didn't expect this, but yeah, I mean, the only thing I got to say is just hope it continues in the postseason for his sake, because that was the big nip on him last year. Was that he kind of faltered in the World Series against the Dodgers, and but I mean, not to think about that. I mean, yeah, it's truly historic. I mean, Yankees can get annoying because like we had all the market media attention and stuff, but I mean, just ignore that. If you just watch Judge play baseball, I mean, it's just it's amazing to watch, really.
Yeah. So let's get into our All-Star voting. We'll go down the list here. First, second, third base, shortstop, catcher, the 3 outfielders for each league, and then the designated hitter. This is phase 1, the fan voting for just the position players. So let's start with first base. So for my first base for the AL, I went with Spencer Torkelson. Um, Playing for the Detroit Tigers, they're having an exceptional year. He's having a great year, both production wise and on base wise. His average is really low, which is one thing that hurts him. But for a first baseman, it's not as important to me. It's more about having power stats. So he gets my vote for first base. And on the NL side, I think it's pretty clear this has to be Pete Alonso. With the 295 average, he is also leading first baseman in home runs and RBIs with 17 and 63 respectively. And he is the top of the first basemen in the National League with OPS. So he leads in all 3 of those categories. Right now, Freddie Freeman's actually ahead of him in the voting, but I think, again, average is not a huge thing for first base. Freddie Freeman's got that 333 average, which is great, but at first base, if you got a 295, but with these power stats, you get my vote. So I got Pete Alonso at first. Who you got first?
Yeah, for the AL, I went with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Decent stats so far this year. And then, yeah, you could probably guess who my NL will. I was also looking at Pete Alonso, but yes, the guy you also mentioned, Freddie Freeman, is my. Yeah, I mean, when I was doing this, I was mostly I mean, I know you're more of a baseball guy than I am, but batting average and home runs. Home runs. I mean, home runs is obviously a great stat, but if this is All-Star, you want it to be showtime. You want guys who can hit it. But batting average is more of like who actually deserves it, because who's more consistent at bat. So those are the 2 I looked at. But yeah, like I said, yeah, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for the Toronto Blue Jays for the AL, and Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers.
All right. Second base. For the AL, I did this last week, and some stats have changed since then, so I updated my list here. But initially, I had Gleyber Torres of the Detroit Tigers. I was really getting those Tigers players in there because they've had such a successful season. But reevaluating, getting some more updated stats, I went ahead with the Twins' Willie Castro, 283 batting average, 7 home runs, 17 RBIs, and an 830 OPS, which does that the 830 OPS does lead all second basemen in the AL. NL pretty easy. I think it's Ketel Marte. Got a good average, leads in OPS, and I know he's really good in the field as well, and has pretty good production stats with 12 home runs and 23 RBIs. I did give a look to Brendan Donovan because I am a Cardinals fan. That 323 batting average is really good, and he's third in OPS. But I went with an all-around better hitter with Ketel Marte. Who you got at second?
Yeah, I went batting average for both. So your Cardinals boy, Brendan Donovan, is on my NL. He's my NL second baseman, and then the guy you mentioned, Gleyber Torres, is of the Detroit Tigers. He is my American League second baseman.
All right. Third base. So this should be a fun one. We got a couple guys on the AL side putting up pretty good seasons here with Alex Bregman and Jose Ramirez. I went tried and true with Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. 319 batting average, 13 home runs, 34 RBIs, and that 915 OPS, which just sits behind Bregman's 938. I just think a couple more home runs, slightly better batting average. It's close. You could go either one here. They are 1 and 2 in the voting right now for third base on the AL side, but I'm going to go tried and true with Jose Ramirez. On the National League side, I considered Eugenio Suarez because of his third base leading home runs and RBIs with 21 and 58, but that 233 batting average, I already had one guy in Spencer Torkelson with a bad average. For third base, I would like the average to be a little bit better. So I'm going Manny Machado with 316 batting, 11 home runs, 45 RBIs, and that 885 OPS, which does lead third baseman in the National League. Who you got?
Yeah, you took my two guys. So
Oh, nice.
Alex Bregman, I guess, is who I'll go with for third base for the AL, and then Suarez for the Diamondbacks for the
Hey,
AL.
that's cool. We're like-minded for third base. You can keep the Jose Ramirez.
I wrote two guys. I wrote two guys for each. Two guys for each position for the AL and NL, and then obviously I put the guy I liked better first. But if you take him, I'm going with the other guys.
Alrighty. Shortstop. This is a fun one, especially on the AL side because we got a newcomer here that I'm going with, and that's Jacob Wilson. 360 batting average. Incredible stuff at the plate. He only has 8 home runs and 38 RBIs, but for shortstop, that's really good. He does lead in OPS, and he's actually a legacy kid. So his father actually played in the league as well at that same position. So pretty cool stuff on the AL side. On the National League side, this is another one that I changed my selection on. I initially had Francisco Lindor of the New York Mets. After some updated stats coming into this week, I am deciding to go with Elly De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds. I think this is we're getting him in to a starting All-Star role this year. He's had an exceptional year, 270 batting, 845 OPS that leads shortstops in the NL, 16 home runs, 50 RBIs, which does lead all shortstops in the National League at this point. He actually isn't in either the top 2 spots for shortstop right now as far as voting, but hopefully my vote, among others, can get him there. Who you got at short?
Yeah, I was really debating the NL between the two guys you mentioned. I actually put Lindor first, so he would have been my pick over Elly De La Cruz, but I really did consider switching that. And then for the AL, I had Wilson first, but I have Jeremy Pena of the Houston Astros second. He's second in batting average for the AL at 317, and he has 9 home runs, which is one more than Wilson. So, and he's third in All-Star voting, I believe, right now.
Yeah, he's putting up a really good season as well for the Houston Astros. Let's go to catcher. This is my position. Love this position. And AL is fun because it's pretty cut and dry here. Cal Raleigh, big dumper for the Seattle Mariners, putting up a 266 batting average, 27 home runs, 60 RBIs, and a 995 OPS. Just a great season at the plate for a position that it's hard to get that kind of production from. On the NL side, so Goodman from the Colorado Rockies seems to lead in a lot of the top stats, but I take his stats with a grain of salt because he is playing most of his games at Coors Field. So I dropped those stats a little bit as far as the home runs and RBIs, and I'm going with Will Smith of the Los Angeles Dodgers. The 330 batting average sticks out to me for a catcher, and the 947 OPS and the 40 RBIs. That's my catcher for the NL. Who you got?
Yep, that was you mentioned both my guys. The Cal Raleigh, clear. I mean, clear is really no second. I feel like
No.
no clear. I mean, there's a second place. I mean, there's no clear guy who could overtake him. But if I went with second, I went with Alejandro Kirk of the Toronto Blue Jays. Only has 5 home runs, but his batting average, I believe he is leading the all catchers in batting average. Yes, he is at 307. So in the AL. So he is my AL catcher. And then, yeah, I mean, you got to go by stats. I know it's the Rockies. I know they suck. I know they play at high elevation, but I mean, if you put up good stats, yeah, I mean, you deserve a spot. So, I mean, Hunter Goodman of the Colorado Rockies. Since I can't get Jaden Smith's dad, I will take Hunter Goodman.
Yeah, and it is still a good season for a team otherwise irrelevant. So get him in there. Hopefully, he can get an All-Star spot. For the outfield, as we've already mentioned, this has been an incredible season from Aaron Judge. Got to get him in. Clear number 1 in the outfield for the American League. My other 2 spots are going to go to Riley Green of the Detroit Tigers and Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins. So I wanted to get some speed with Buxton. He has good hitting stats as well. So no, not too big of a deal there. He does have a 273 batting average, and he is second in OPS. Green is third in OPS, so it's boom, boom, boom right there for the AL side. He's putting up, with Riley Green, 15 home runs, 51 RBIs, a great season for him as well. On the NL side, I know Ronald Acuna, his stats look really good, batting 400, 1.2 on the OPS, 8 home runs, 14 RBIs. And so those stats are clear to me that he hasn't played a lot. He's only played maybe a month's worth of games since coming back from injury. So I'm not going to quite give him the spot over guys that have played double, triple the amount of games up to this point. On my NL side, I do have Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks, James Wood of the Washington Nationals, and a breakout performance for a Chicago Cub named Pete Crow Armstrong. Incredible season from him. I know Tucker is getting actually getting a lot of votes as well, but they're actually 1 and 2 on the voting currently. I left Tucker out just because I had to get in 3 guys, and the 3 guys I got were Wood, Carroll, and Armstrong. So who do you got for the NL and AL on outfield?
Okay, starting with the AL, yeah. So you're obviously better than me if you have Judge. So guys that are left over, I'm gonna go Stephen Kwan of the Cleveland Guardians. Not many, only 6 home runs, but he's batting average just under 300 at 298.
Good hit for average.
Which is second behind Aaron Judge in the AL amongst outfielders. So it's weird. So Mike Trout's getting votes for. He still plays outfield because on the MLB stats he's listed as a designated hitter.
Oh yeah, I think they put him in right field before the season started. So yeah, he is
okay. So I'm taking Mike Trout then. I mean, he's not putting up like one of his absolute monster seasons, but I mean, he's still Mike Trout, and he's still up there. So he's my other guy, and then who's the other guy I went with? Oh yeah, Kerry Carpenter of the Detroit Tigers. 13 home runs, batting average 260, not bad. Needed some guy with more home runs than they usually take. So without Judge, he was the guy I went with. Okay, yeah, for the NL, obviously Kyle Tucker. If you left him there, I'll take him. Juan Soto, I will also be taking Juan Soto of the New York Mets, and I also went with I mean, there's lots of Dodgers to pick from, but Andy, say his last name.
Crow Armstrong, picking him too.
Andy Pages, yeah.
Oh, okay. Pages.
Andy
Gotcha.
Pages, yeah. 15 home runs. I mean, he's 15 home runs, and he's leading the in batting average amongst National League outfielders, 293. So, figure that's good value. A Dodger that doesn't get as much attention as some of the others, but still a really good player.
Perfect. Let's go to designated hitter for our final All-Star spot. So initially, and I'm kind of glad that we put off the podcast till today, because Rafael Devers was my initial selection for AL designated hitter from the Boston Red Sox. He is now a San Francisco Giant and is not even listed on the AL side. So I had scrounged around for my next best guy, and that's going to be Brent Rooker of the Oakland A's, or not Oakland, just A's. 276 batting average, leads the AL in home runs as far as designated hitters with 15, 41 RBIs, 841 OPS. And then on the NL side, I'm going to just have to boot off Devers because guess what? Shohei Ohtani's on here. So 296 average, 25 home runs, 43 RBIs, and 1 dotting on the OPS. Obviously leading NL votes on designated hitter. Who you got?
I mean, it's Rooker and Devers is because I still have Devers stats up for the American League, but a very similar. Both have 15 home runs. Rooker actually has a slightly better batting average than Devers, so may have actually picked the statistically better player. But I'm just gonna go batting average here. Ryan O'Hearn of the Baltimore Orioles still has 10 home runs, so that's not bad. But he's leading the AL designated hitters in average 305. And obviously, Ohtani is really good, and he'd be my main choice. But I am actually going to go with the Chicago Cub. I don't want to say his name wrong.
Seiya Suzuki.
Seiya Suzuki. Hold on, let me pull up his stats because I did this. I didn't write any of my notes down. I mean, I had reasons that. Just home runs. Yeah, so he's just second behind Ohtani in home runs. He has 18 home runs. Batting average isn't horrible. It's 261. So, and the Cubs are doing good this year. So, I figured if I can't get Ohtani, I'll take. I assume he's Japanese too, so I'll take his Japanese.
There you go. There you go. Well, that'll do it for our MLB All-Star voting for Phase 1. Not sure what it'll look like for Phase 2 if we'll do anything on that. But we're going to have some space freed up in the coming weeks for baseball. And after the NBA Finals get over with, that'll wrap things up here at the KNO Sports Huddle. I am Cage Kiplinger. That is Logan Hubert. We'll be back with you next week on a quicker turnaround here since we're doing this on Wednesday. We'll be back with you guys on Monday. Hopefully we got some stuff to talk about. See you next week.